recent days, we have had an increase in fuel prices, and this has caused some annoyance and anger because fuel prices affect many areas of our livelihoods. While the anger and annoyance and discomfort may be justified, it's important that we explain why the fuel prices went up, as we have been explaining, and many spokespersons of government departments have been explaining. But it's very important that Ugandans continue to get clarified on what exactly caused this spike in the fuel prices, to appreciate where we are and maybe what is likely to happen in the coming days. Just to remind ourselves again that the hike in fuel prices again is one of those effects occasioned by the measures that we continue to institute in the fight against COVID-19. You know, for the last 2 years, we have had this challenge of COVID-19. It has come with its own problems and areas of discomfort, and we appeal to Ugandans that let's continue to be understanding, because all of us would want to successfully overcome the problem of the COVID-19 pandemic. You recall on several occasions we addressed you on some of the measures which government was coming up with, including instituting mandatory testing for all incoming travelers, be it those who enter the country through the airport or the land borders. And we did tell you that the government had taken over the testing services, especially at Entebbe International Airport, where we also reduced the cost of testing from $65 to $30, so that we address the concerns of Ugandans. But we left the management of testing services at the land border points in the hands of private actors as we prepare to take over all those testing services. Now, on the 1st of January this year, the Ministry of Health, I think, announced a new measure that required all truck drivers to be tested for COVID-19 at the border entry points. And of course, some of the active border points are the Maraba-Busia points, and the truck drivers protested that decision and went on strike. So we need to understand how the hike in the prices came. And when they went into strike and the trucks were not entering into Uganda, this affected the supply of fuel in the country. And now, because of the demand-supply dynamics, now the prices went up. Of course, coupled with some sort of speculation from our business persons, we will take advantage of those situations, and they hiked the fuel prices. So that explains why we got this spike in the prices of fuel in the last few days. So it was because of the measures to contain COVID-19 that we got a resultant effect of prices getting up. But earlier on, the ministers of the East African community and those of health had met and made some agreement as a sub-region of East Africa where one, they had made an assessment of laboratories in the region and accredited several laboratories in the region that would carry out COVID testing, and the results should be acceptable across the region. Up to 66 laboratories were assessed and approved, and I think in Uganda we have up to 22 laboratories which had been approved. So that if a test is carried out by a laboratory in Uganda that has been approved, then the results should be accepted across in Kenya, in Tanzania, and South Sudan. That arrangement had already been arrived at. The ministers had also agreed that we accept results which have been given in the last 14 days. 14 days. And therefore, what we have done as government in a bid to resolve the impasse which had been created by the truck drivers is that we have now harmonized as a region to say that the truck drivers and all their passengers who reach the border points with the negative PCR results that have been given in the last 14 days be allowed to proceed, should not be subjected to another test. Secondly, we also agreed that if there is a truck driver or any other passenger they are carrying who requires to be tested, he or she should be tested at the border. But the cost shall be met by the government of Uganda. The cost of $30 shall be met by the government of Uganda. I saw some of the media houses saying the government has bowed to pressure, has suspended the testing. You know, the current position now is that if you fall in a category of a person who requires to be tested, for instance, if you don't have a negative PCR test from one of those laboratories in the last 14 days, it means you are eligible for testing, then that person shall be tested at the border, and the cost of testing shall be borne by the government of Uganda. And these decisions have been communicated to the relevant authorities, and to that end, the trucks have begun moving, and we have increased the manpower at the border points, including for URA and the other agencies, so that the vehicles can cross as fast as possible. And now the situation has changed and it continues to improve. We would want to caution our business people, because some of them are in the habit of wanting not to bring down the prices even when the reason that was causing that has been addressed. So our appeal to the business people, to the Ugandans, that now that the fuel has started flowing, they should be able to get back to where the prices were, and we return to normalcy. And should there be stubborn traders that want to take advantage by not reducing the prices, then we can use the law and the force of government to bring them to order. So let's give it time in the next 7-10 days, when we are sure that fuel trucks have now been able to reach all corners of the country to supply the fuel, and where it requires the strong arm of the government, of the state, we shall use it. But we do believe that once the fuel is available, then the prices should come down.